r/AskReddit by Reddit. Librarians have Reddited 24-hour libraries. What's the worst student meltdown you've seen? About 10 years ago, I was working in the computer lab towards the end of term. It was around 2 AM. All of a sudden across the room is this blood-curdling scream. Me and this other guy jump out of our wheelie chairs like WTF. Then we just hear sobbing. Me and my newfound friends go over to the sound, only to see a girl crying into the keyboard and hitting her head. It turned out her only copy of her final thesis was on a USB stick and was corrupted. It was due at 5 PM that day. No idea what happened to her. Now, I always eject before moving. Not a librarian, but the one who had the meltdown. I'm an architecture student, so I'm no stranger to all-nighters and meltdowns, but this one is special. It was 4 AM. I had my final jury presentation at 9 AM. I had been working on one large Illustrator file for hours, saving every hour or so. Suddenly it crashed, and when I came to open it back up it took an hour to load, and once it opened the version that I had 2 days earlier. Safe to say I freaked the fuck out. Hyperventilating. My skin had the world map on it in hives. I was crying. Computer science majors volunteered to recover my file. People took my laptop while I just rocked back and forth staring into the distance. Finally I found a backup file that I had saved in another location. Once I settled down and started working again, a few guys came up to me and offered to save my work on their laptops cause they never wanna experience seeing that again. Also was at a party once and ran into a guy who said, "Hey, you're the one who had a complete mental breakdown at the library, right?" Not my proudest moment. I've worked at an engineering library at a relatively rigorous university for 4 years, and there have been a number of meltdowns to the degree where we had to take hostility workshops to learn to deal with hostile/inconsolable students. The worst was a student who got a call that they didn't get a summer internship, sat on the railing of the 6th floor stairwell, and was, apparently, going to jump to the ground floor. The night custodian talked her down, and now there's a net there. There's a PhD student that spends probably 90% of his life in the library for the past year or so, brings a whole loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter and works all day, has a toothbrush and soap to wash up, and pushes together a few cushioned ottoman type things to sleep, has a pillow as well. My supervisor told him he couldn't do that several times, but now we've just given up trying to stop him. There was also a student with an outstanding fine, $15 or something, who had graduated and moved back home, and we started getting calls where she would call and threaten to kill, and much worse, our supervisor/head librarian, if we didn't clear the fine, just rambling without any room for us to respond for 10 to 15 minutes. We got caller ID after that. Otherwise you just get a lot of students at the end of their OP who are pissed that the textbook they need isn't available and decide to take it out on us, as if we can do anything about it. A girl in my major started screaming as loud as humanly possible in the bathroom and wouldn't come out. We, some dudes, had to rush in to make sure she wasn't dying. The cops came because someone heard the screams and called 911, thinking someone was mortally injured. She was having a panic attack. To be fair, it was a pretty stressful semester. Also, it was right after a serious mass shooting. Can't remember which, so people were on edge. I saw a few start running towards the door when they heard the screaming. I'm a student worker at my university's library. Most students have their breakdowns away from the circulation desk, so I tend not to see them. I do get my fair share of idiots and rude people. However, my first time witnessing a breakdown was when a foreign master's student wanted to check out a 2-hour course reserved for a whole semester. I was so confused because she kept asking where is the book in an irate thick accent. I asked her what the name of this book was so I could help her, and she refused. She just wanted this mythical book without telling me its forbidden name. After 3 rounds of me asking for the name of the book, she threw a hissy fit and walked away. 30 minutes later she came back demanding to see the manager. My supervisor had to explain to her how course reserves are on a 2-hour loan period due to demand, and she still wanted it for all semester for herself. They argued for a full 15 minutes and my supervisor kept his cool. That guy is a trooper. I work graveyards in a 24-hour college library. We've had people race rolling chairs down the hallways and build entire living room areas with the random chairs and sofas lying around. One time it was like 2 AM and I saw a dude on top of his desk doing push-ups as fast as he could. Ducks are drawn everywhere. Another time I was checking on the individual study rooms we check out, and I thought nobody was in a room because it was dark. Nope. Turns out a dude was sleeping on the floor and I nearly screamed because I thought it was a dead body. Things get weird between 12 to 5 AM. To come to mind. One student took something, I don't remember what, and decided that clothing was no longer necessary. He stripped naked up in the stacks and ran up and down the bookshelves with his arms stretched out, throwing all the books on the floor. The police had to basically tackle him since he was so out of his mind on whatever substance or medication he'd taken. We were not pleased about having to reshelve that entire section. Another time, a student came in at around 3 AM and started knocking against the staff-only door leading to the circulation desk area. One of the staff members got up to answer and heard a thud, followed by liquid flowing under the door. Turns out the very drunk student had passed out and peed all over himself right outside the door. We had a student, male, have a psychiatric breakdown during midterm exams and follow a female student around and then into the women's bathroom just to talk. Apparently he never touched her, but of course the situation was extremely terrifying. Police were called, and when they got to him, he couldn't remember his name, or where he was, or what school he attended. He was taken away in an ambulance and we never saw him again. Had another student get hit by a car while on his bike on his way to the library. His adrenaline was rushing so high he got back on the bike and rode the rest of the way to school, only to collapse in the library lobby upon arriving. He had to be taken away in an ambulance. He had broken both elbows. Crazy. I worked at a university full-time, so I could take free classes. It was a nice perk. I decided to start going for CIs, computer information systems, and having access to the library 24/7 was nice. I decided to use that all the time. Tech support, where I worked, was located on the first floor of the library, so we got to see all kinds of freakouts. 1. I was told to meet a student at the library that was having issues with the computer they were logged into, not their own. It was a school computer. I show up, and this girl is in tears sobbing at her desk surrounded by 2 other students and a librarian aide. I come over, and they explain that she needs to get her documents off of this computer, and that her class starts in 10 minutes. The computer froze so she began having a panic attack. After a few minutes of poking around I realized that something bad happened to this computer, and that it was all sorts of fucked. I tell her that I will need to shut it off. Girl lets out a scream that I have only ever heard in horror movies. She thought that I was going to delete her work. I end up ripping it apart and getting all her work back. Then I go with her and the librarian to class to explain to her teacher what happened. She ended up getting an A on whatever the hell she was working on and thanked me later. But that scream was fucking haunting. 2. A couple had a fight and the guy stands up, takes his MacBook, and throws it across the room. It blows into about 15 pieces and this dude just starts yelling at his GF saying that she fucked up his work. Later we had to explain to him that while we were able to get all of his data off of the computer, there was no way to repair the computer, to which he lost his mind and we had to call campus security. 3. Watching a guy fall onto the floor and start screaming because he had such a bad headache. He had been at the library for 3 days, barely sleeping and was worried about failing his finals. We had to contact his parents because he was basically on verge of death. The dude ate 2 packages of crackers and drank Monster Energy drink for all 3 days. 4. One guy decided he didn't want to go to college anymore, so during finals he walked into the middle of the computer area of the library and screamed "Duck college and duck all of you," and proceeded to throw a dictionary at a librarian, breaking her nose. He was arrested and kicked out of school. 5. I fell asleep on one of the large couches in the 4th floor hangout room. Picture a giant room full of couches, comfy chairs and beanbag chairs. Woke up to a girl throwing up violently in one of the beanbag chairs as her friend patted her on the back saying, "It's okay, you will pass your final. It's just math. Who uses math anyways?" I laughed but then let out a long sad sigh because I had to clean that up. No janitors around at 4 AM when it happened, and since I was an employee I cleaned it. My boss bought me lunch the next day and I was given a free day off because of that. Thank you Vomit Girl. Thank you for watching Reddit. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more r/AskReddit videos. Share your stories in the comments section below.